In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create tables using the table manager in our ESP system. First thing you want to do is go ahead and go into the table manager. And over here under your table organizer, this is where you're going to be able to create your table. There's two different ways for you to be able to do this. The first is you can click on File, then put your cursor over New, and then you'll see Table right here. If you click on this, you will see that there is a option here for you to be able to choose what folder you want to put that in the folder organizer tree. If you want to do it the other way, this is the way that I prefer. Go into the actual table organizer and drill down to the folder where you want to actually create the table. So for this example, let's just go ahead and put it under our sandbox. So if you go under sandbox, right click, you'll see that same option of create table here. When you left click, you'll see that that option is gone because it's automatically going to put that in as the value for the folder. So these are the values that you need to put in. First thing is the ID. This is the ID specific to our ESP system. The DB name, this is the actual name in your database. So you can make this the same as the ID, or if you have a specific naming structure that you want to hold to, then you can go ahead and put that in there. The name, this is the actual name that's going to show up throughout our system when that table is referenced. So you'll see that with this naming structure, this is the name, and then inside this is the ID that you have for the table. So they will both show up throughout the system, so you'll be able to find the tables, but for essentially looks, you can go in and put something a little bit nicer. So we'll go ahead and put that in there. You can also put in a detailed description of the table. So if you have a table that's specific, let's say to existing customers versus new customers, you can go in and kind of put in a detailed explanation of what data is supposed to go into that table for future reference. So we'll just go ahead and put that in there. You can choose to assign your own primary key to the table. If you leave this blank, our own system will create a column called int ID. It will be an auto increment integer, int 11. But if you wanted to name your own, let's call this tutorial ID. Then you can choose the SQL data type. Once again, if you leave this blank, it will auto assign this as an int 11. But it will not make it auto increment unless you have this selected. So if, let's say, I didn't want this to be an int 11, but I wanted to make it a varchar 50, let's say if it's going to be a mixture of numbers and letters, if I also click this auto increment, it will not be able to assign this attribute to the SQL data type, so it's not going to be very happy with that. So if you want to make something an auto increment, it has to be an integer in this field of some sort. So we'll go ahead and uncheck that. Another neat thing you can do is you can assign a description column, and what this description column is going to do is throughout our system, when this ID is showing up, especially if you're going to have reference integrity from one table to another, that description column is going to be where if you put your cursor over the value, the ID, it's going to give you this description. So I'll give you an example right here. We have set up these where this is the name, and then we have a description column of the description where if I put my cursor over this, it's going to give me this detailed explanation. So that's going to be true through the entire system. So it will not create a description column if you leave this blank. So, but let's, for our example, go ahead and put in name. It's going to do an auto varchar 200 because it figures that you're going to want to have something a little bit more detailed, but you can feel free to go in and change that if you wanted to. The other neat thing you can do from here is you can create a desktop shortcut. So I'll give you an example of what this does. If I check that, and then let's go ahead and put in a name. Okay, once you have all this information input, don't click on this little X up here. Make sure that you click on the submit if you're ready. If you click the refresh, all of your data will be lost. So if you needed to refresh the form for some reason, just be aware of that. Let's go ahead and click submit. The record has been inserted. And there is my new example. So you can see that it created the table, and I have my tutorial ID as well as my name. And you can see if I go over to my indexes, it has created a primary key that is unique on my tutorial ID. So the one other thing I'll show you is if you go back to your desktop, you'll notice that that icon is not on here. That shortcut icon is not here. To be able to refresh your desktop to see that, you have to click on Start and Reset. It's going to give you this warning and ask if you really want to reset it. It's going to warn you that everything's going to close. So if you have any unsaved information, make sure that you do that before you click Yes. When I do click Yes, you'll see that here is my tutorial shortcut. So what happens is when I click this, it's going to open this and it's going to give me my data as well as my columns for quick access right there. Now any of the more detailed information, like you'll notice that the format and the indexes, those are things that you cannot edit from here, but it is a quick and easy way to be able to access the data as well as basic formatting for your table. So that's all you need to know to be able to create a table using the ESP system.